You see, I believe that it's very important when you're covering news to be forthright and talk about the news specifically. Now, you may offer up your opinion and maybe your audience understands that, but for the most part, you need to get the facts right. And it doesn't seem like any of our news media, any of the authoritative news media has been getting very much very right very often. And as a result, we've seen a lot of defamation suits and other things that have been going on in the background. Not to mention the FCC seems to be looking very closely at a lot of people's licenses and their abilities to broadcast in the future. There's a lot of reasons for that, of course, but it's something that I've been taking to heart of late, which means if I say something wrong or get caught up in something that's wrong, I will trim it out or maybe not even release a video because I don't want to be caught up in disseminating wrong information. And on the times that I do, I apologize and quickly edit out the bad thing because I don't want that to happen. And an incident like that happened to me very recently, and it was pretty much a simple, just little chop chop, and it was done. You should be able to do that as a major news network, as people that are supposed to be relied on for accurate information, because you don't run with anything unless you have 3 sources or more and are able to get a little bit more out of your source than normally a regular person would be able to. Well, that's not been happening lately. The need to be first is put the accurate information last. And we have another result that came in that is making Rachel Maddow look very bad. Interesting story. Let's jump into it. But before we get right into that, just a quick reminder, I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and that is going to take your help. And because you're out there, just double check for me that you're still subscribed to the channel and that you've turned all your notifications on so that you don't miss anything. I do a live stream basically every single day, absent when I'm on vacation or ill. You can also count on me for at least 1 to 3 videos per day for the most part. Again, there are going to be some gaps because of other things that obviously life requires. But if you take a couple of moments just to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on this video, and make sure to follow up watching another video from my channel after this one, you'll be in good shape and you hopefully won't be unsubscribed from the channel anytime soon. And with that, let's press forward. Here we go. Now, I don't think at any point in time anybody actually deluded themselves in thinking that Rachel Maddow was actually a top-tier journalist. She's not. She's a news reader and an opinion pusher, and that's about all she's ever amounted to. It's not been a hard-hitting news person, and the fact that she happens to be the best thing that MSNBC has to offer should tell you something. But when it comes to stories like this, where Rachel Maddow and other MSNBC hosts face a $30 million defamation trial from ICE doctor they called Uterus collector, that kind of tells it all. Now, this headline, while sensational, is 100% accurate and directly from the New York Post. And it's not alone. This case had been going on for quite some time, and they were not able to weasel their way out of it. If you take a look at the story underneath the byline, you can see that on July 11th, this was published. Here we are in, the end of February of 2025, not all that many months away from that date, and we're at a situation that seems to be all too familiar for the major network news media out there. And I know it's hard to consider PMSNBC as a real news organization, but they are, or at least I'm told they are, so I will say as such. Now, this defamation suit was leveled at Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Chris Hayes, and many more. And the judge in Georgia actually ruled that they were reporting verifiably false claims about a doctor they said performed mass hysterectomies on an ICE center detainee, or detainees in this case. 39 false claims by MSNBC and NBC journalists in what they called the Uterus collector based on a whistleblower account from a nurse that is named here. And there's a picture of her later in this article if you want to go look it up for yourself. But the only picture that I will shock you with, of course, is Rachel Maddow. Now, this District of Georgia judge wrote 108 pages on this very subject. Well, we have the results of what happened. It came in late yesterday, so I'm reporting it to you today. And it doesn't look good for MSNBC. And no, believe it or not, that's not another picture of Rachel Maddow. I don't know who it is, but what I do know is even MSN got this right, reporting NBC settles defamation lawsuit with doctor, falsely labeled uterus collector. Now, of course, I had to go out and get a smattering of the different news media accounts of what actually went on, just to make sure everything is up and above board. This one came in at 8:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have another coming from the Daily Mail. MSNBC star Rachel Maddow set for courtroom humiliation over shocking on-air slurs. What's funny is they had to update this because NBC Universal has agreed to settle a $30 million defamation suit filed by a Georgia gynecologist after on-air talents, including Rachel Maddow, falsely labeled him a uterus collector. Well, we'll get more into that in just a moment, because I promised that I would bring up a third example, and believe it or not, this is the same story that MSN had because it's coming from NPR. So everybody's covering this in their own way, or they're stealing from others, I should say borrowing from others, or publishing other people's pieces. But it comes down to the ultimate story that I think was dropped by the post-millennial. Now, MSNBC settles defamation suit with doctor they claimed was mass sterilizing women at ICE detention centers. Probably a cleaner headline, probably more professionally presented, and you know what? It doesn't escape me that that's kind of what the new media does these days, what the old media used to do. From the article, the parent company of MSNBC, NBC Universal, has reached a settlement after being sued for defamation by a Georgia gynecologist who said the news network made verifiably false statements about the doctor being a uterus collector. Multiple hosts said the doctor was performing mass hysterectomies on female detainees at an immigration and customs enforcement facility, which means they were likely here illegally. Obviously, the three most prevalent hosts were the ones that were targeted by the suit, from Dr. Mahendra, Amin. According to the statement obtained by the outlet, both parties have signed a term sheet for the settlement in the next few weeks. In June, U.S. District Judge Lisa Godby Wood previously ruled, and I read this to you already, the undisputed evidence establishes that multiple NBC statements are false, but the jury trial has been canceled due to this settlement. NBC investigated the whistleblower letter's accusations. That investigation did not collaborate with the accusations and even undermined some. NBC republished the letter's accusations anyway, and this is something that the judge wrote in what turned out to be a 108-page summary. Amin said that the false and defamatory statements from the hosts were made 6 different times on Deadline White House, 10 times on The Rachel Maddow Show, as well as 7 times on All In with Chris Hayes. That's an awful lot, and congratulations for counting the number of times that they defamed you, because I'm sure they would have just kept going on and on like, they do. It seems often enough that people are now suing them. Finally, the judge, of course, determined that there were no mass hysterectomies or a high number of hysterectomies at the facility, disproving the claims made by the whistleblower. She also found that Dr. Mahendra Amin, the plaintiff in the case, had only performed 2 hysterectomies on detainees and was not a uterus collector, at least not as the whistleblower had suggested. Wood also noted that undisputed evidence has established that there were no mass hysterectomies or high numbers of hysterectomies at the facility. There were only 2, and they were performed for very good reason. One was because of a cancer diagnosis, and the other, I don't remember. But all I know is that, unfortunately for MSNBC, they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar again, which certainly doesn't help their credibility at all. Worse yet, and referring back to the MSN story, or their version of the NPR story, ICE makes essentially the same point, and it appears a valid one, Scholl wrote in the email. She has no direct knowledge of what she's claiming. This is referring to the whistleblower, and is unable to claim the name of the doctor involved, and we are unable to verify any of it or determine whether there is really a story here. Essentially, it boils down to a single source with an agenda telling us things we have no basis to believe are true, Scholl admitted in that email. At the least, we would have to note all of that in our reporting, but then it's worth asking, why are we reporting it in the first place, which I think is a good place to start. How is this a story? I think we need more of our independent reporting before going with this. ICE's statement alone doesn't get us there. And of course it didn't, because you want to be first. And, forego the other sources that you would normally require under this particular circumstance. And that's how they got there, because all of the hosts, or all of the hosts that are involved, or actually named here, decided to roll with it anyway, including Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, and Nicole Wallace. They repeated some of the allegations based on NBC's reporting, which probably shouldn't have been done at all either. And the reporting triggered an investigation by a U.S. Senate committee, which found no evidence of mass hysterectomies being performed on women there, or probably men. I don't know. I live in a different world now. The probe itself actually just determined there were 2 procedures, and those were conducted on women that were medically necessary. And one of those included a person that actually got a cancer diagnosis, which makes perfect sense. To wrap it up, we'll just say that Amin previously sought $30 million in damages. It was not clear from the Fox News report if he will see all, some, or none of that money. It is also unclear if MSNBC or NBC News will have to apologize or retract any of their reporting. The network, as of the time of this reporting over here, is still making copies of the original segments aired on MSNBC available through various YouTube channels. And of course, this may not be over. Why? Well, the language of the settlement is still being determined, and it is not final until the court overseeing the case affirms it. The judge may still reject the settlement for any number of reasons, and lawsuits that were thought to have been settled have fallen apart at the last minute because the court objects. In other words, this could be done, this could be moot, or this could still be wide open, and there could be a whole lot more time on the cooking spit for Maddow and company. For the moment, I'll just sit here and say this. Try not to say anything that is absolutely defamatory. I think that should be a given for a news network and even for people in my position as well. Do your best. Try not to say things that may be untrue, and just kind of deliver on what news should be. You can certainly speculate, you can offer an opinion, but you can't couch it maybe as actual legitimate factual information, because those two things don't coalesce. Regardless, I'm the last person that should be teaching a journalistic ethics class because I have no interest in being a journalist. While I do write some stories over at That Park Place, almost all of them, I believe, have been couched as opinion, because that's what they are, my take on the news of the day, just like here on my channel. And if you come here for anything else, I really hope that it's just to hang out and say hi, and make sure you're still a member of the channel. If you're not a member, consider becoming one. At least subscribing is free. And a membership at a cup of coffee may get you a movie watch party or something along the way. And with that, I'll just ask you a simple question. Are there any modern news organizations that you trust currently? Do you still trust MSNBC? Do you trust CNN? Or do you get your news from more and more independent sources each and every day? I think most of us have probably moved along to the new media, where at least we know things are right or wrong at a much faster rate. And information that was maybe called hogwash 3 or 4 years ago, all of a sudden seems to be less so these days. Let me know those thoughts down in the comment section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.